You're listening to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Now here's your hosts, Kevin, Derek, and Alex.
All right, and welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. I am Derek, and joined as always by your co-host, Kevin. Kevin, how are we doing tonight?
Doing good, man. Doing good. We are, basically 1 week of the regular season left as far as fantasy football is concerned. So, feeling pretty good in a couple leagues, right on the cusp, and a couple others I've been kind of grinding out on here a little bit. So, this week 14 is going to be a big week for me personally. It's going to be the difference, in probably 7 or 8 different leagues, maybe even 9 that I was flipping through today, and I'm sitting right there, right? 5th, 6th, 7th place, like flirting with that final position in a lot of different leagues. So, big week to kind of see how some of these are able to shake out for me, as I'm sure you're sitting in a very similar position in some of yours and some of the folks listening. So I'm looking forward to it. Like, I'm ready to get after it and see what kind of hell we can give week 14, even with some predominant fantasy players on bye this week.
Yeah, like this really, I think, is the week for most of my rosters, right? Like, the bye-mageddon is real this week for me in a lot of different leagues where, I've got a few different Broncos players. I got a few different Commanders players, like you name it. I've got a few different leagues that more than half of my rosters on bye in a few of these things. And when you're staring down that, and in some of these leagues, I've got to win to make sure that I get in. And if I lose, I've got to hope the chips fall as I need them to make their way to the playoffs. And if I get into the playoffs, there's certainly some teams that can do some damage, but holy moly, is this the bye week that I'm really not looking forward to.
Yeah, like you said, some high profile teams, right? Commanders, obviously you have Terry McLaurin, Jaden Daniels, Zach Ertz. For the people streaming tight ends, Ertz has been a pretty popular one. You have the Texans,
Right.
CJ Stroud, who's been less than what we thought he was going to be, but maybe some injuries to his star receivers played into that a little bit. But Nico, Joe Mixon, who's had a hell of a year. Again, Dalton Schultz for those streaming tight ends. The Broncos, Cortland Sutton and Bo Nix have been really good here down the stretch for your fantasy team. So if you're able to stick with them specifically, they've kind of really carried their own weight and maybe part of some of the rest of your roster, especially the last 4-5 weeks. As we're getting down here in the stretch, the Ravens are a big one, right? Lamar, Derrick Henry, Mark Andrews to an extent, right? He's kind of emerged here a little bit the last few weeks, and being able to do some different things like that. So, I mean, those 4 teams, I feel like I'm missing 2. Just there's so many teams on this week.
Baltimore, Denver, Houston, Indianapolis, New England, and
Indy and New England. Yeah, New England I don't care about. Maybe Ramondre. Indy, I mean, we wanted them to be more fantasy relevant. And I tell you what, Anthony Richardson, as scary as it is, the dude is getting it done since he started back into the fantasy lineups, right? Like, his legs are helping carry through that. And it's not pretty. It's not pretty. It is 11 of 26 for 189 yards, but you end up with a touchdown or 2, and he's run one in the last couple weeks. So he's finding a way to get you there, as crazy as that seems. So yeah, Indy a little bit. Jonathan Taylor, maybe. I mean, you're kind of having to start him with where you drafted him. You're kind of having to throw him out there unless you picked up some great waiver wire additions. And then the rotating Dort receiver between Alec Pierce, Josh Downs, and Michael Pittman. So yeah, even with that team, fantasy names that we all know.
Yeah, it has been like that is rough, because just the amount of guys that I've got on that one. There's a few of those leagues that it will be I'm scrambling in a few of these things and really having to make that decision on, do I drop this guy? I don't want to drop this guy, but I kind of feel like I have to drop this guy to pick somebody up to play so that I can I don't take a 0 on this one. So, and I'm sure there's lots of folks out there that are struggling with some of that same, same issues with when you've got this kind of Mageddon happen.
Absolutely.
The other one too, like week 12 was a pretty big one too, but for whatever reason, that one didn't impact me as much as this particular week seems to be. So,
yeah, and I think 12 got me the most, and 14 I don't feel as bad about, at least in the home league. There's some others that I'm struggling, right? I've Derrick Henry and Cortland Sutton, right? I'm like, golly, like that one's a little painful. I've been riding the Broncos defense in a couple leagues. Obviously, they're on bye. It's okay, fine. So I'm trying to see if I need to keep them and carry 2 defenses for a week. In most cases, I am doing that, to be quite honest. And then you have, the injuries, right? CMC and Jordan Mason going down. So who's the next guy up in San Francisco? Been kind of fighting through that. Been, trying to figure out, is Romeo Dobbs coming back, or is he going to be out another week? Same thing with Tillman, right? We kind of fell in love with Tillman a little bit. Then he got concussion. So bouncing back and forth with those guys a little bit. Which version of Calvin Ridley are we going to get to kind of help with the bye weeks? Which version of Jaden Reed are we going to get? So a lot of decisions to be made here. Yeah,
it has been really kind of crazy with a lot of these various bye weeks, and the injuries seem to be piling up more so this year than they have in years past at this point. Like this is usually about the time we start seeing all these guys returning and kind of rock and rolling, and just doesn't seem to be that way this year. So
yeah, it's been all receivers. The running back group has relatively been healthy.
Right.
Outside of Christian McCaffrey. I mean, you start going down the line. Achane healthy, Jonathan Taylor healthy, Breece Hall healthy, Saquon Barkley healthy.
Henry Kamara's been banged up a little bit, but he hasn't missed time.
Yeah. So I mean,
Joe Mixon missed a little bit.
Yeah, he had the high ankle sprain, missed at the beginning. What, 3 weeks or so at the beginning. But then came on with a freaking tear. But Josh Jacobs been healthy. Najee has been healthy, right? Najee's been doing all right. So Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler have both been in and out a little bit for the Commanders. They're on bye this week anyway. You're rotating backs through Rashad White and Bucky Irving. I think each has missed a game.
Right.
But again, relatively healthy for the running back position this year, which has been kind of opposite to what we've seen the previous 2 or 3 years, where the receivers are the ones staying healthy, and the running back, it's running back roulette. Gibbs and Monty, right? There's 2 other guys who've been pretty damn healthy all year long. So, it did not turn into the wasteland. If you kind of pivoted off of conventional thinking and you stayed running back heavy this year, there's a good chance your team's doing really well because your guys stayed healthy and you didn't have to fight through Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Christian Kirk, Cooper Kupp going down, Keenan Allen going down,
Puka Nacua,
Debo, Puka, Brandon Ayuk. All these guys have missed time.
DK
Metcalf missed some time, right? I mean, Tyreek with the wrist injury and the Tua injury really hurt Tyreek, to some extent. But I mean, all these guys have probably been a little bit of a lesser version than what we anticipated on draft day.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So we do have some questions coming in. You want to head over and hit up some questions and comments here?
Let's do it.
All righty. So first question of the night, we got Terrence over on YouTube asking to start Adams or Thomas Jr. flex, and Terrence knows us and knows that we were going to say who you starting at wide receiver 1 and 2. He adds that both Chase and Kupp, and then he's undecided on the flex between Adams and Thomas Jr.
Adams. I don't want to trust if this is a must win. Is this the must win week?
Yeah, it might
Like,
be.
yeah, if this is a must-win week, I'm not letting Mac Jones decide a must-win week for me. And as bad as the Jets offense has been kind of holistically, I still trust Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers more than I trust Mac Jones throwing to anybody.
Right. Well, and Devontae Adams has the better matchup against Miami than what Brian Thomas Jr. has against Tennessee. So they're close, but I'm right there with you. I lean on the Adams side of that.
Mm-hmm.
Any other thoughts on this one?
No. I think we're very much aligned here.
All righty. Jamie over on YouTube saying, "What's up, guys?" Jamie, you know how we doing. We got that Tuesday night. We're getting folks ready to go here for week 14. Thanks for tuning in. Silky over on YouTube. Haven't tuned in a while. How are y'all? Question: which three to start out of Higgins, Keenan Allen, Ridley, and Judy? I feel like Judy's almost a must start these days.
The only thing about Judy is it's Pittsburgh.
That's true.
And I could see Pittsburgh at home kind of being out for blood in a sense, right? Kind of dropping that one a couple weeks back in Cleveland in that snow game. Like, I do worry about that slightly. Keenan Allen's been on a heater.
Right.
So I like that one as well. So I like Higgins, Allen, and honestly, I like Ridley against Jacksonville. I think this Jacksonville team's dang near giving up. The Texans, while they didn't necessarily put the points up, Nico Collins had himself a really good game, and it got lost in all the talk about Trevor Lawrence and the unfortunate injury that he suffered. But Nico Collins had himself a really good game. I can see Calvin Ridley getting loose on these guys and having himself a game. So for matchup purposes, I'm going to say you're benching Judy. You're not going to chase the points coming off a career game against the Denver Broncos on Monday night, and understanding that it is the Pittsburgh Steelers, possibly you're getting Tillman coming back, so that could take away from Judy just a little bit. They're not going to force it into him quite as much, and a stouter defense. So Higgins, Allen, and Ridley for me this week.
Yeah, I'm going to co-sign with that one. I think Higgins and Ridley have the potential of both finishing in wide receiver 1 territory this week. So Ridley has the juicy matchup. T. Higgins has a juicy matchup there too. So both of those excellent matchup plays. I think those are
if you wanted to pivot, and I think, sorry, Derek, I completely cut you off. If you're wanting to pivot, you swap out Allen for Judy, but Ridley and Higgins are probably, like you're saying, the two mainstays.
Right. And that's kind of where I was going to go with that is those Judy and Allen are probably a little bit closer on that one. So I like the chime in there. All righty, let's go ahead and hit up Terrence over on YouTube. It's a must-win week. Thinking about starting Burrow, Kyron, Connor. Have to stream tight ends, Eagles, Group 8 thoughts.
What tight end are you streaming?
Yeah. I mean, I like the Kyron, Connor, and Burrow side of things. I like I'm assuming the Chase and Cup is the wide receivers there, and the flex is Adams.
With Adams, yeah. So I like a lot of that. I like the Eagles defense this week against Carolina. Yes, Carolina's been playing better, but again, the Eagles are one of those teams that they're just hot right now.
Right.
So they're trying to put some distance. I mean, they're fighting for that 1 seed, right? They know the Lions and Packers have a big game on Thursday night. So depending on which way that goes, the Eagles could make up that ground and be right there in the hunt for the number 1 seed coming down the stretch. So I don't expect them to overlook Carolina. I think they know that they need to handle business quickly, put them down, and then force Bryce Young to throw the ball. And if that's the case, I think the Eagles are able to get to him.
Yeah.
So I like it. And I think it makes a lot of sense.
Agreed. Terrence asking for that kicker side of things. Folk, the Vikings kicker, or Group A? The Vikings kicker, by the way, is Parker Romo. For everybody out there curious about the Vikings kicker.
I think I'm leaning with Parker Romo. I don't. They're at home, so that's always a good thing. So they can cover everything up. They're not going to be affected by the weather there in Minnesota. So you like the fact that he's indoors. So I think that's kind of where you're leaning this week. And Folk, I don't mind, but it is an outdoor game.
Mm-hmm.
So I think because of that,
Same thing with Group A. It's at the Giants, and
at the
that's
Giants, I don't want any part of that wind tunnel at the
nope.
Meadowlands. I don't want any part of that. So I'm going to lead Romo, the Vikings kicker.
Yeah, same concurrence with you. I mean, when we were talking, these guys are probably all going to be projected within a half a point of each other, but I like the fact that Minnesota, Atlanta, that has the makings to turn into a little bit of a shootout to it. I do think that Atlanta is looking to rebound, and Kirk Cousins specifically looking to rebound after that dreadful performance in Week 13. That I could see Atlanta and Minnesota getting a little bit of shootout. Plus, you got the Kirk Cousins revenge game at that point too. So I do think that we see this one get some ridiculous points going on this thing, and more points equals more opportunities for the kickers. So I like that route there. Joe over on YouTube, Najee or Pacheco this week, need a win or a loss plus help. That's a lot of folks out there in that same boat with have to win or a loss plus help. Half point PPR. You rolling with the Najee or you rolling with the Pacheco?
I'm rolling with Najee because I understand the timeshare in Pittsburgh. Or I feel like I have a better understanding. Maybe that's how I need to phrase it. I have a better understanding of the timeshare in Pittsburgh. The Chargers' run defense is really good.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure how much we're going to see Pacheco, if he's still going to be splitting duties with Kareem Hunt, and that's more of a split backfield now to preserve both of them and be able to keep both weapons healthy and active going into the playoffs. It's a lot of unknown with what we haven't seen out of Kansas City so far with kind of a split backfield. So I'm going to pivot away from Pacheco because I at least feel like I understand Najee's going to see 17 touches. That has been pretty consistent. Jaylen Warren will get his 10 to 12, but Najee's consistently been seeing, 16, 17 touches, whether it's been on the ground or sprinkling in some receptions here lately a little bit from Russ. And again, Steelers are a team that's done incredibly well this year, and there's no reason to think that they're not going to come out and really try and get the Browns back for the loss that they had a couple weeks ago.
Right. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think that the opportunity is greater for Najee. That Chargers run defense, like you said, is really good. So yeah, Joe, I'm leaning right there with what Kevin was saying and going the Najee route as well. Terrence over on YouTube, needing to stream a tight end. If they can't get Ferguson, would you roll with Komet, Noah Gray, or Jawan Johnson?
So I would run with Noah Gray. Again, I'm going to ride the hot hand if I'm streaming tight end. Mahomes is looking for him. It's not necessarily a volume play, but he is a red zone target. We have seen that here over the course of the last 4 weeks. Patrick Mahomes is looking for Noah Gray in the red zone, and his teams continue to be hyper-focused on Travis Kelce and now DeAndre Hopkins. Gray gets a lot of single coverage against the second or third linebacker that's on the field for the opposing team. So, again, not that the Chargers won't have a game plan for them, but if they're wrapping up Noah Gray, Travis Kelce is going to have himself a really good game, I think. But logic tells you have to cover Kelce. Kelce is the game wrecker. Gray is the consolation prize from an opposing defense point of view. So I would lean Gray and go the hot hand and just you're banking on a touchdown for a streaming tight end. And I think he's a guy who outside of Jake Ferguson probably gives you the biggest upside for that.
Right. Yeah, Juwan Johnson, I really don't want any part of this New Orleans offense outside of Alvin Kamara. It's kind of
Johnson's interesting now that Taysom's down. I will give you that. Like,
right.
I'm intrigued. I'm not intrigued enough to start him in a must-win game, but I am intrigued. You know, if I was streaming tight ends and I had my spot solidified, right, and Dalton Schultz, I'd take a flyer on Juwan Johnson. Dalton Schultz hasn't done enough for me to, feel like I have to keep him around. To try and prove something to myself. So that type of situation, I'd take the flyer. But for a must-win game, I want hot hands. So
Right.
Ferguson, yes, coming back, absolutely, because of the volume that you think he can get in helping out that Dallas passing game. But if you can't get the volume of Ferguson, I want the touchdown upside of Gray.
Right. And Noah Gray, even without the touchdown upside, has still been seeing 5-6 targets a game over the last few weeks. And so I wouldn't mind riding that one as well, right? Like, I like the touchdown upside. I also like the fact that he's seeing, 4, 5, 6 targets over the last 3 weeks as well. So,
yeah. So not that I expect anything less. So there is a bit of a, quotes in here, but Travis Kelce spent 5 minutes on his New Heights podcast with Jason, hyping Noah Gray. Like, just what a great guy he is. He's just coming in and doing the right things, how much he enjoys working with him and playing with him and everything. Like, really hyped this guy up. And not that I don't expect him to build up a teammate, but I've seen similar instances from that show where Travis will acknowledge it and then they kind of just move on. He really seemed to go out of his way to hype this guy up. So I think there's definitely wrinkles in the Chiefs game plan specifically built for Noah Gray now.
Very cool. All right, let's go ahead and hit up this one. Neo over on YouTube, stuck on some buys like everyone else this week. Pick 2 PPR flexes: White, ETN, Westbrook, MVS. All righty.
Damn. Okay. As crazy as this seems, since I'm picking 2, I'm going Westbrook Akine because, again, he's been on a heater. And he's a guy who is just finding the end zone for the Titans right now. And so I'm going to go with Westbrook Akine for the Titans, as crazy as that sounds. And you're just banking on another touchdown, right? 56 yards and a touchdown. That's what you're looking for. As far as the second flex, your upside's MVS.
Correct.
We've seen the deep shots and Derek Carr has been looking his way to kind of fill that Rashid Shaheed type role. Excuse me. So the upsides with MVS, I think your safer floor is probably with Rashad White. Going against the Raiders, I think that's probably where you're going to find the best floor. ETN, just it has not been his year. Like it just hasn't been his year. So I think I would stay away from him. So Westbrook Akine for sure. And then if you need upside, MVS. If you need more of a floor for that other flex, Rashad White.
Yeah. I like that thought, and I'm co-signing with that one. MVS also kind of riding that hot hand. In the last 3 games he's played, he's put up 4 receiving touchdowns. So some of that very much depends upon if you think MVS is going to get into the end zone. Like there's that's a good play there. If you don't think that he's going to get in the end zone, probably not the best move there. And Rashad White certainly provides the floor play on that. So I like that. Let's go ahead and head over to the next question here. Neo's asking, what are the odds Reichart returns for Minnesota over Romo? I know that the Reichart returned to practice this week. He's been dealing with the quad, coming off the injured reserve, like the injury window's open. But at this point, until we really get more practices in and we get to that Thursday, Friday report, it kind of is what it is at this point. And I'm still thinking that Romo's the kicker at this point on Sunday.
Yeah, I could. I agree. Just like with anything else, there's no point in rushing it back. Now, keep an eye on the injury report. The good thing about kickers is there's always another pivot. So, again, there are some other options out there. Again, Falk, is one that you could go to because playing at Jacksonville, a little bit warmer weather. Look for domes. Look for home teams. That type of thing that you can help yourself.
Right. So, yeah, I agree with that thought. Scott over on YouTube, thinking of blowing the fab bank on Grendo, 16 team PPR.
Go for it. I'd leave yourself about 10% of your fab if that's what you want to do, just in case you need to pivot during the playoffs and you have a little bit of money to play with. But if you need some running back help, or if you're just trying to play keep away, I don't see a problem with that if you have the roster spot to burn.
Right. Yeah, I would agree with that as well. I don't know that you're going to see, right, like Grendo's had a pop game in there, but at this point, I don't know if we're going to see San Francisco actively, trying to play for something at this point. They're still in the hunt a little bit in that AFC West or that NFC West, but that window is beginning to close for the season on that one. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out here over the next coming weeks. But yes, I agree with that. Leave yourself a little bit something, and just in case during the playoffs you have to make a move or have to make a pivot. So, Nino over on YouTube, the quarterback is Kyler, the running back Chase Brown, James Cook, Bucky, Brian Robinson, Tracy, the wide receiver. There's Justin Jefferson, Nico Collins, Terry McLaurin, Debo, Tillman. Tight ends are McBride and Henry. Start 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, 2 flex. He's got a late trade deadline in the league. Already secured the playoff spot. I should hope so with that roster. Wondering if I should make any roster moves to help improve the playoff run.
I mean, if you can flip, man, see if you can flip Debo and Henry, right, and help your wide receiver position a little bit, right, or Debo and Kyler for like a Josh Allen or Joe Burrow, right? See if you can get that elite fantasy quarterback down the stretch. I mean, I think either one of those I'd be looking at, but realistically, I like it. I mean, this week specifically, I tell you, you're starting Jefferson and McLaurin, Trey McBride, and then you're starting Chase Brown, James Cook, and Bucky Irving.
Yeah. And I wouldn't mind if you're looking to flip like a James Cook and a Debo and try and move up in running back there a little bit. Like that wouldn't be a bad idea either. But I like the roster construct as it's sitting there. I don't know that you want to tinker around too much with this. But I do like those other thoughts that Kevin provided there as well. Any other thoughts on this one?
Well, you have an interesting thought process there. So let's see running back wise.
Right at this point, I'm looking for running backs
Cook
that
and
have
Debo, you said?
Yeah, James Cook and Debo. And I'm looking for running backs that have phenomenal like end of year runs and playoff strength of schedules to it, right? And so if looking playoff strength of schedules, right? Probably some of the best playoff strength of schedule would be Saquon, Bijan. I don't know that you're going to be able to move up to go get those guys with a combination of James Cook and Debo. Devon Achane, Derrick Henry, Joe Mixon all kind of have average strength of schedule playoff runs. Jahmyr Gibbs has a great run there. David Montgomery has a really good run there. James Conner and the Cardinals have a pretty good playoff window there in weeks 15 through 17.
So what about instead of Cook, you look at Brian Robinson?
Yep.
For James Conner, right? Yep. Brian Robinson and a piece, Debo. Again, like not high on it, right? I don't think you're going to be starting Debo here, especially once Nico's done with the bye week. Terry McLaurin does provide you some upside. Brian Robinson and Tillman, see if that does it. Maybe you need to pivot to Debo, but I think James Conner is an interesting piece to have for playoff strength of schedule. So I think that one's interesting. David Montgomery would be another one. If you're looking at Brian Robinson and Debo, David Montgomery would be one that I'm interested in looking at. Sheer volume. Not necessarily the greatest matchups, but sheer volume and what you're getting out of it. Josh Jacobs has been on a tear for the Packers.
Right.
Like, I think that's one that you could definitely look at, and he's not an A-list name, so maybe, your league mate isn't so set up on him. So I think those three guys would be good guys to pivot and potentially look at if you want to improve that running back room. And kind of go from there. So you could play with it a little bit, but don't be giving up a bunch.
Right. And that's the other thing too, is if you do trade Debo, you're going to have to find a wide receiver to fill in at wide receiver 2 for you this week. Just because Nico and Terry both on buys, and Tillman, who knows if we're going to see him back yet or not. So
here you go. Jump to his next one.
I just saw that one. So Nino also asked the question of, do you think Cook plus Debo plus Tracy for like Bijan too much? Maybe even try and get back a piece, because I've been in trade talks for Bijan already.
Well, I would absolutely try it.
Right. And if you've
I'd
already
absolutely
been
try it.
Yeah. And if you've already been in trade talks there, like, let us know what that kind of looks like, right? Like, are you getting anything out of that could shed some light on what would make that deal? So
this is the time of year that late trade deadline, if you can consolidate and use that depth to really move yourself up, go ahead. Like, it is do or die after this week anyway. So go big.
Exactly. Binkin over on YouTube, thoughts on Pittsburgh right now? Asking, looks like if the playoffs started tomorrow, would Pittsburgh beat Kansas City?
I think it would probably depend on where the game is. I think in Pittsburgh, yes, I think they could beat Kansas City. In Kansas City, the referees have a way of handing Kansas City games. I hate subscribing to that, but after so long, it almost becomes kind of the running joke that everyone knows. So I think that, call it 50-50, neutral site game, I think you'd be seeing Kansas City -1.5. Yeah,
maybe. I mean, Kansas City is not a power, like I say, not a powerhouse team, right? Because but they are finding ways to get the job done and finding ways to win. But you look at how many of these games over the last few weeks have come down to last second heroics, some big play happening, whatever that looks like right there at the end to pull that out. Like, it's not that they're an unbeatable team or they look that much impressive to it. They're quite frankly just getting that ball to bounce there, right? Because the Raiders, one of the worst teams in the league, they managed to scrape out a 2-point victory that went down to the wire against the Raiders last week. Week before they played Carolina, they managed to get a 3-point win over Carolina, who, again, one of the worst teams in the league. They lost to the Bills. The Broncos, it took them getting a last-second field goal block to get a win against the Broncos there. Like, this isn't one of those that they're just coming out and dominating people, and we're seeing this deal. It's that they're literally squeaking games out at the very end, and quite frankly, the
right play at the right time.
Right. And if the ball bounces just a little bit differently, or is an inch here or inch there, like that could drastically change that. And so it'll be interesting to see how they finish out the season here, right? Because they do have some tougher matchups. Chargers this week. The Browns
Denver beats them to end the season at home. I really do.
And I think we're going to get a good matchup of Binkin's question come Christmas Day, when the Chiefs and the Steelers face off in Pittsburgh. So I think that's one of those that we'll kind of get what that looks like here in a couple of weeks. So anyway, I like that.
Being at home, Pittsburgh -1.5. I have no idea if Vegas has set a game line that far out yet or not. I'm sure they might have something somewhere, but I'm guessing it's Pittsburgh 1.5.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that one is very, very close when it's all said and done, that line's set. So I'm interested to see how the Chiefs kind of finish this out. Or is it one of those that we're going to keep seeing them squeak through and kind of ride this thing through, or do we see them kind of turn it on and get hotter as the season comes to an end? So be interesting to see. Any other thoughts? Oh, good.
Kansas City in general, right? Not necessarily thoughts about this, but Kansas City in general. There are rumors that Hollywood Brown could be back for week 16, 17, something like the end of season.
Right.
Not that it does anything for fantasy purposes, but do you think having Hollywood, if he is able to make it back, do you think that helps the Kansas City Chiefs? Or is it just another guy at this point because he's going to be rusty? He's going to be trying to figure out where he fits in.
I mean, I don't know that it changes much at that point, right? Like there's only so many guys you can line up on the field at that point, right? So if you're going to do that, which I'm just trying to think of their personnel grouping that they're going to run off of that, because they do like to run a lot of 2 tight end sets on that one. So if you're going to have Hollywood out there, you're going to have Xavier Worthy out there, DeAndre Hopkins and Kelsey, you're running that 11 personnel a whole lot out there. And at which point you're likely going to be sticking, Worthy in the gunner role. You actually probably move DeAndre more into a slot type of role. Kelsey in his normal type of position there as well. And so you really kind of stick your outside receivers with Hollywood and Xavier Worthy to try and take the top off, to try and open things up underneath more so for Hopkins and Kelsey. I think is how you kind of play that and how you scheme things up there. And then if by chance Hollywood or Worthy breaks it over the top and actually gets behind the defense, you got the deep shot there. But I don't know that it changes it that much. Initially, maybe as we get into a little bit into the playoffs, we start seeing some wrinkles here and things like that. But I don't know. You've got a couple of speed guys out there, but they really haven't been throwing the ball deep down the field. And you've got the fastest guy ever to do the combine that we haven't seen the deep shots over the top on. So I don't know that having 2 of those guys out there, the lightning fast and can get behind a defense is going to change much of that.
Fair enough.
So, I don't know. Any differing opinions on that one?
I think Hollywood probably runs a bit better route at this point in his career than Xavier Worthy does. I think Worthy's still good for the gadget play. Because I think it gives them a bit of flexibility to go to keep with the 2 tight end set. And now you can run Gray, Kelsey, Hopkins, and Hollywood and do some of that, because with Hollywood being a little bit more refined in that route running, I think you could run some interesting over-unders between him and Hopkins, right? And have the tight ends kind of sprinkled in or flare out, whatever that looks like, and give some options. Part of Worthy is he's just so small,
right?
That I think having a bit of a bigger body in Hollywood, right? Like he's not 5'9", right? He's not 5'9".
He's not overly bigger, but
no. He's 5'11".
Yeah,
he's 5'11", has an extra 20 pounds, but sometimes that adds up. And the fact that he just has some of that NFL experience, and maybe Mahomes just needs to trust him a little bit more, and he feels like Hollywood can get in the right spot. So does it drastically change it? No, you're not getting a Justin Jefferson or Amon-Ra St. Brown, AJ Brown type player back, but I do think it allows them to help with their rotations as far as snaps played, different wrinkles that you're wanting to kind of play off of between having a rookie and the old wily veteran to, the old wily veteran and, a pretty consummate pro in Hollywood Brown.
Yeah. But it'll be interesting to see too, because I could see it where they ultimately line up Hollywood and Worthy on the same side of the field, and you've got Kelsey or Hopkins, moving in because of a lot of this cover 2 shell that we see happen. Well, if you're gonna try and beat a cover two shell, one of the best ways to do that is to put the speed out there, and you have it where one of the guys just kind of runs that old go route on that, and another one runs that post route on that, and that safety has to pick between which two speedsters he's going to try and come up with. Your other safety has to try and come over onto that side of the field and keep up with that. And now you've got DeAndre Hopkins
Underneath crosser, right?
Yep.
8 to 10 yards, and you
Yep.
just eat
And
it. Yep.
all day. And that's where I think that's where that can make a difference there. So
Yep. I was thinking the exact same thing as soon as you said same side.
Yep. Yeah, that one could be very interesting, right? And if I was scheming up things for Andy Reid, that would be one of the I'd run so many different combinations off of that it could be interesting what that looks like. So, all righty. Any other thoughts on this one?
No, I'm looking forward to it. It'll be a good game.
Absolutely. All righty. Let's go ahead and head over to this one. Scott over on YouTube. Part of me is tempted to drop Worthy for Keenan Allen in a standard league. I would.
Yes. Worthy hasn't done enough to earn a spot in your lineup.
And especially in a standard league where you're not getting any, Keenan Allen's at least been getting yards and touchdowns.
And target share. He's getting opportunity, if nothing else, right? Last 4 weeks, he's averaged 28% target share.
Yeah, it's been crazy.
Like, take the volume, right? At least that's my thought. So yes, I would do that in a heartbeat. I have no lingering ties to Xavier Worthy, right? Especially come the playoffs. If you're not cutting it, you're out. Like, it's a little bit different in our home league because some of it's keepers, and you got to be careful about who you're dropping, and there's a little bit of gamesmanship involved there because you never quite know what someone is or isn't willing to do. But if it's just a standard redraft or not a dynasty, but if it's just a standard redraft, hell yeah, I'd drop Worthy and pick up Keenan Allen. Go for it.
Absolutely. Binkin over on YouTube saying to Nino, he likes the James Conner side of things there. So, alrighty. And Forever Eagles on YouTube. Sup, fellas, looking to pick up Isaac Guerrero from the waiver wire. Who should they drop? Chubbs, ETN, Noah Brown, Jake Ferguson, MVS, Sam Darnold. They have Mahomes.
So I would personally drop Noah Brown.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't fault you if you wanted to drop ETN.
Yeah. I would also go.
There's still some hope with Chubb, right? He got the touchdown. Like, there's still a little bit of hope with Nick Chubb, and not that he's going to go back to being a top 5 running back this season or maybe ever. Who knows? But ETN, it just has not happened. And him and Tank Bigsby are kind of just splitting that workload. The Jags are kind of left for dead with no real fight left in them. The Browns keep fighting for Jameis. They keep fighting for Kevin Stefanski. We just saw the game they gave the Broncos, right? They had every reason to show up flat outside of Jerry Jeudy, and they didn't, right? I mean, that is, they're ready to go. They want to play spoiler. They realize what their role is here at the moment. So I think Chubb has to play a vital role in that to keep him balanced a little bit, because we saw what happens when JMO throws the ball a little bit too much, right? I mean, you saw the epitome of the Jameis Winston pendulum last night.
Right.
490 yards passing with 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 2 of which were returned for touchdowns. Like, I mean, you really saw the pendulum and all things good and bad with Jameis Winston, excuse me.
Yeah. I mean, Jameis threw 6 touchdowns. The only problem was 2 of them were to the wrong team. And quite honestly, had that linebacker not been caught, I forget who had that last interception.
Yes, Barton was going. I mean, Jerry Jeudy just said, like he was not having that. But
because if Jeudy didn't catch him right there, like that convoy was starting to catch up there a little bit, and I think he might have broke it and had a 100+ yard pick six. So
yeah,
but yeah,
I'd look at it. Why not? I mean, you pick up Grendo. I think he instantly is higher up your depth chart than ETN.
Yeah, I would look at dropping Noah Brown on this one. right? Like I get Noah Brown's been a little bit hot here and there, but opportunities aren't overly there. They're going into a bye week. He'll likely still be on your waiver wire next week. So at that point, you could make the decision on, do you really want to take ETN into the playoffs, or would you rather have Noah Brown?
Or MVS, right? If you're not going
Yeah.
to start MVS and you're not worried about facing him potentially from another playoff team, he could be another guy. I would keep Darnold. Like
Yeah.
Mahomes is not throwing for 350 and 3 touchdowns each week, right? Sometimes it's really ugly with Mahomes. And again, I wouldn't start Mahomes. I think I'd start Darnold over Mahomes this week.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I really do. Like I haven't looked at any of the rankings. That's just my feeling. Like I think I like Sam Darnold in the dome against Atlanta more so than I like Patrick Mahomes against the Chargers.
Yeah, I think so. Like I said, I think that Atlanta Minnesota game is going to get crazy in the high scoring affair. So
Yeah. What game gives you a bigger opportunity for upper 40s as a total?
yeah,
And you're not getting the upper 40s by running the ball.
no, because it wouldn't surprise me if we see both Atlanta and Minnesota end up in 30+ points for each team in that matchup there.
I'd like to see that.
Chiefs and Chargers, I think we're going to see. I think it's a race to 22 in that game.
I could see that.
So that's kind of where I'm at on that one. So, but yeah, it sounds like we're pretty much in line on who we drop and all of that. So, and then Nino over on YouTube saying, "Oh yeah, James Conner would be a solid one as well. Just got him in so many of the other playoff rosters. So, not a bad guy to have on that one.
No, new contract. So playing like a baller.
Absolutely." Tyler over on YouTube saying Otten, Fryermuth, Kraft, Johnson from the Saints.
Otten, then Kraft, then Fryermuth, then Johnson.
Yep. And then he says if Kraft, they would have Reed and Kraft. Yeah, I'm right there with you. It's Otten, Kraft, Fryermuth, Johnson in that order there. Quincy over on YouTube. Need one running back and one flex. Tony Pollard, Tracy, Pacheco, Hunt, Brooks, Jennings.
I like Pollard against Jacksonville is pretty juicy. Like it's hard to
Yeah.
turn that down against the Jacksonville team that we're kind of picking on at this point, but so be it. So, so I think he's the running back as far as the flex goes. I
like that Tracy against New
I
Orleans.
I think I like Tracy against New Orleans too. Again, both backfields are splitting time, but the Giants have a much easier matchup against the Saints than the Chiefs do against the Chargers.
Right. And
And
Pacheco
I don't want any part of Jennings.
right. And Brooks, I want to see it before I
No.
actually put him into a starting lineup.
It ain't gonna happen.
Yep.
Chuba's done too good of a job. He has not done anything to warrant touches being taken away from him. He is not the problem in Carolina right now.
No, I would agree. I just and that Brooks, they're up against Philly, and I don't want any part of going up against that Philly defense. They are running hot right now.
Yeah, not right now. Not right now. You're right.
So Tyler saying that just another guy, Hopkins is 10 times better. I'm not quite sure what that's in reference to, but trust is the key word, and then saying he's thrown to Gray.
He's talking about Hollywood. I think he's talking about Hollywood.
Oh, okay. Yeah, very well could be, right? So kind of back to that discussion. So very cool. Nino over on YouTube, back in trade talks with the Bijan manager, says they're trying to give me London instead. He offered London, Downs, or Thielen with Tua for my B-Rob, Debo, and Tillman.
Okay, so of that group, I would rather have Drake London and Tua. I don't know if the quarterback does you any good. I mean, it's kind of nice to have a pivot, but
Yeah. But I mean, at that point,
I don't hate it because I'd rather see London in my lineup with Nico and Jefferson. Nico Jefferson and Drake London is a hell of a wide receiving core. Because then you're still starting. Sorry, I'm scrolling back up here.
it's start
You're
2
still
running
starting
backs, 2
Cook
wide
and
receivers, and
Chase
2
and
flex. Yeah.
Bucky. Oh, shit,
Right.
man. I don't know. I don't know that I'm opposed to this. Tillman
Right.
doesn't do anything for me. That's a throwaway piece.
Right.
B Rob isn't going to touch your lineup over Chase, Cook, or Bucky, in my opinion.
And at that point, yeah, because you'd run Chase, James Cook, Bucky, 2 RBs and 1 of the flex. And then going into the playoffs, you'd run Justin Jefferson, Nico, and probably Drake London at that point. Yeah, I mean, that gives you some flexibility there for sure. And then that kind of comes down to you can kind of pivot and pick how you want to go, whether you're going Bucky or Terry McLaurin. And you can kind of base that off of matchups. You can base that off of, whether you need ceiling or floor plays.
Yeah. I think I'd do this.
So, and he does add us in here as well, saying, feel like that's not even worth it, to be honest, unless I'm overlooking the value of having a 4-headed wide receiver monster with Nico, Jettis, Terry, and London.
I think you are because you have 2 flex spots. In this instance, again, going into the playoffs, you have 2 flex spots. You get to pick the best matchup of your 3 running backs. And then you're starting 4 wide receivers. And if one of the receivers has a really bad matchup, then you have a third, you have another running back you can play. I don't hate this. Again, you're consolidating your bench depth to win now because that's all that matters going forward. You need this week, whatever, but I mean 3 weeks. You need a 3-week winning streak to get to a championship. 15, 16, and 17. I
Right.
would feel pretty good with Nico, Jefferson, London, and Terry.
Yeah, and then, like I said, you could then kind of sprinkle in how
It's
matchup
combining our
wise,
lineups.
right? It really is.
It's combining our lineups. I have Nico and Jefferson. Derek has Terry and London.
Right.
Combining it.
Right. And then Nino saying, yeah, that's true, because it's not like you'll even start Debo or Tillman to begin with. Maybe even B Rob, like you guys said. Yeah. And the other thing too that you could do, and this is one of those that if you're feeling really, really froggy, and I don't know that I would do this one because I want a little bit of depth in the playoffs just in case something happens from a injury standpoint or somebody gets banged up, dinged up. I've got to pivot to it. But if you've got that 4-headed monster of running backs there, you now have some ammunition to potentially go out and get a upgrade at one of those other running back positions if you really wanted to, or try and upgrade somewhere else at that point. But I do like the idea of being able to roll out that roster with Chase Brown, James Cook. You're going Justin Jefferson, Nico, Drake London, and then you're able to pivot off of that last flex spot, whether you like the matchup for Bucky or whether you like the matchup for McLaurin. So, if you're feeling really froggy, you could see about trying to package some, see if you could package somebody and move into James Conner or David Montgomery as your other running back there. See what Tracy and Hunter Henry could get you and see if that could move you up into a James Conner.
Maybe they need a quarterback, right?
Yeah.
You have Tua,
right?
You don't need Tua, so you can throw him in there. He's been on a hot streak, right? There's been nothing wrong with Tua the last few weeks. He's thrown his touchdowns and gotten you there fantasy wise. So, I mean, it's a possibility.
Yeah,
it really is. It gives you options, right? But I would do this deal, I guess, to get to this. I would do this deal to get to Nico, Jefferson, London, and Terry. I would give up Debo and B-Rob and
I was just saying, and I guess one thing too, I just want to make sure we're not overlooking this one. Terry, this or not Terry, Nino, this is a I'm assuming this is a half point or a full point PPR. This is a standard deal, like that certainly changes that. But tell me at least a half point PPR. Anyway, let us know that. But yeah, I'm kind of with you, Kevin. I'd rather have the four-headed monster. And then again, if I'm feeling froggy, I could try and make a deal to bring along another running back in there to try and improve that with a David Montgomery or James Conner type of thing and have that potential pivot there, flex play type of play there as well. So, yeah. Any other thoughts on this one?
No, it's a good position to be in.
Absolutely. Scott over on YouTube saying, do we know who the starting quarterbacks are for the Giants in Jacksonville? Assume it's Locke and Jones. Yeah, we'll know as we get closer to it, but that's kind of where I'm thinking.
I think it's definitely Jones for sure. I guess I assume it's going to be Drew Lock, but that could potentially be the one that changes. But I see no reason why the Jags start anybody besides Mac Jones.
Right. Okay. And then Nino was saying that they really appreciate it, and yes, it's half point PPR. Yeah. So if I'm getting points for even if it's half point per reception, I like the four-headed monster at running back or wide receiver. My apologies. Scott saying that they're scraping the bottom of the barrel to get O'Connell, but need a second 2 QBs on a bye.
Oof. Yeah.
Yeah, that is the rough. So
yeah, I mean,
honestly, what I've done in most of my leagues that when I've had an issue with not being able to fill a super flex. Now, Scott, this could certainly change if it's a must start 2 QBs or a start 1 QB and a super flex for the other option, which is what most leagues are. I've been perfectly fine running out one of my wide receivers or one of my running backs out there to do that. Typically, I've got the depth to do that though, but that's another potential thought. There is if it's a super flex, you don't have to go another QB because there are times out there where scraping the bottom of the barrel for that QB at the end and going with the Mac Jones, Drew Lock, Aiden O'Connell type of thing. Yeah, sometimes those running backs or wide receivers are a better bet anyway. I don't know if you have any other thoughts on that one.
No, I've seen that. I've had to implement it. So sometimes it's just a better option. And your scoring depends on that a lot too. Right? Like I don't know if we're in this league together or not, but there's a league that you lose points for incompletions.
Yes.
So it is a super flex league, but in situations like that, well, if I don't love my second quarterback option, to Derek's point, I will gladly start a skill position player because they don't lose points, right? Their ceiling may not, but one of these scrub back in QB2, QB3 type players, I would rather take the guaranteed points of a skill position than potentially, see my number 2 quarterback go 8 for 18 for 180 yards and an interception.
Right. Or put up a Kirk Cousins performance this last week where it was big negative points, or Anthony Richardson, while in a lot of other leagues has been scoring well, those 50% completion rates in those types of leagues absolutely kill it.
Completely takes us away as rushing.
Yeah. So you're basically you're fighting to get to 0 in some of those cases. So, and Scott saying that that one is super flex, might just go Mooney. I wouldn't have a problem with that, especially that Atlanta Minnesota game. I think that's going to be a high scoring affair. So if you're not in love with your second quarterback to fit in there, I'm okay with starting Darnell Mooney in that role.
Yeah, I agree.
So very cool. All righty, guys. If you have any other questions, any other thoughts, let's go ahead and throw them in the chat here. Let's go ahead and hit those up. And I do know that before we kind of call it a night here, We do have some interesting scenarios that we kind of talked about a little bit on the home league and all of that. Did you want to kind of spend a little bit of time there and on rock and rolling through some of those playoff scenarios? Or
Yeah, we could touch on those real quick. See if we get any last minute questions.
okay, awesome. So yeah, in the home league, Andy was able to get that number 1 seed, right? He secured that one going in. We've got the 2 through 4 that there is very much up for play on that one. Yeah, you're kind of locked into either the 2 seed or the 3 seed. Myself, I could vary anywhere from the 2, the 3, or the 4. The scenario that would have me move down on that one is if I lose and Kelly wins, he would jump up there, in which case you would likely move into the 2 seed, and Kelly be the 3 seed, I'd be the 4 seed. There's a lot of teams that very well could finish 7-7 and somebody on the outside looking in, and very, very interesting scenarios there. Yeah, the biggest one kind of comes down to Sam and Craig playing, and it's pretty much a win get in. I don't know, any ones that kind of stood out to you that interesting matchups or anything like that going into week 14 in the home league?
I mean, our co-host Alex, who's working this evening, right? He's been kind of scraping to find his way back in, and he's knocking on the door, right?
Okay.
He needs a win this week,
Win and he's in.
and he's in. So he's right there, currently sitting in the 8th spot. I kind of hope he does it because I like his first round matchup against Andy.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of hope Alex is able to do it because I think he could give Andy some trouble there in the first round. So that one's interesting. Sam started out so stinking hot in our league. Just kept finding the right amount of wins. Injuries finally caught up to him. And he's now, I guess, relegated himself to the fact that he doesn't have the dogs to hunt in the playoffs. Injuries have kind of decimated his team, so he's out. So it'll be interesting. The home league, it's always interesting with 8 teams because we've seen a good number of years where the 8 seed has taken out the 1. But there is a part of me that really wants to see this go down to 6.
Well, I could see that, and you get the 1 and 2 seed get the bye on that. If that's the case, I really want to get rid of the divisional type of deal there, right?
Yeah, I'd be totally willing to concede the divisions to go to 6 teams in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Let the remaining 6 teams duke it out for the toilet bowl.
Fair enough. And in the toilet bowl side of things, consolation, whatever you want to call it, I think if that's the case, I think that's one of those we almost got to look at it to rework it to a point where, because now if you're getting the 7th, 8th team in there, yeah, you're no longer having that consolation playing for the number 1 draft pick at that point. So you hit some of those teams that just missed the playoffs and managed to get moving up in the draft avenue there. So something to look at, something to think about for sure. So, but yeah, very interesting, right? Craig and Alex, if they win, they're in type of things. Alex can still get in with a loss, but that requires Craig to also lose. If Craig wins, Alex loses, Sam stays in, but if Craig beats Sam and Alex wins, Sam's most likely goes from the 7th seed to the 9th seed and is outside looking in. So very interesting with this one for sure. And we'll let everybody kind of know what that looks like as we kind of move into that and things really get set here after this week. So but there's a lot of different scoring scenarios too that with wins and ties, and because we always do it where the points for is the tiebreaker. And there's a lot of things that could shift around just based off of a couple of teams scoring a little bit better than other teams this week. So very, very interesting. Any other thoughts on this one?
No, it's fun, right? It is close. It really is. Like we have just as much parity as anything else, right? Andy's team has a two-game lead, so they clearly were first, and we have one team that's kind of clearly 12th. But outside of that, it's been a good jumble, 2 through 11.
Right. And really, I mean, 2 through 9 are only separated by 2 games there, right? And so depending upon how some of this shakes out, we could have a lot of teams be, 9 and 5 at the end of this thing. They're all kind of heaped together in the middle of the pack for the playoffs. So, could also have a lot of teams 7 and 7. So it's just very interesting how some of this might play out.
Yeah, absolutely.
All righty. Did have one more question come through here, and so we'll hit this one up, and I think we'll call it a night. Quincy over on YouTube, sit one between Mooney, Debo, Jennings.
I'm not starting 2 Niners, so one of the sits is going to be a Niner.
Mm-hmm.
Oy.
I think I lean Debo on this one.
I think I lean Debo too.
Like
we haven't seen the volume.
Right.
We just haven't seen the volume. So I think I'd sit Debo with you. So Mooney and Jennings would be your starts there, Quincy.
Right. And the last time we saw Debo finish higher than wide receiver, even in wide receiver 2 range, was back in, or wide receiver 2 or better range was back in week 6. So, yeah. I'm not looking forward to having to rely on Debo to try and deliver a win out of that one. Need one flex, NVS or MVS, Debo and Myers. Probably lean Jacoby Myers at this point.
Cosign.
And if I absolutely had to have like high upside, I might go with the MVS side of that. But even then, I don't know that the ceiling is that much better with MVS than with Myers, because Jacoby Myers has been getting double-digit targets 3 of the last 4 games he's had. So.
Yeah, no, I agree. O'Connell's been feeding him, so he's definitely putting him and Bowers, right? He's been feeding both of them, which is where all those targets need to go. So I'm playing Myers with the volume.
Absolutely. And then Mario over on YouTube saying, "Good evening. I'm enjoying the discussion. What are some of the last place punishments you guys recommend? Is kicking the last place out of the league a harsh punishment?" I've seen leagues like that before, and it's kind of fun because if you have it where you also have a secondary league kind of set up, and you have it where it's the bottom team or the bottom 2 teams are relegated to the other league, and the top 2 teams from that league are able to be promoted into the other league. Like there's certainly some fun in that one, and if you've got a big enough friend group, that is absolutely a blast on that.
I'm a sucker for the Waffle House challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm a sucker for the Waffle House challenge. One that I thought was really cool is who the heck did it? It was some country singer. The last place team in that league had to come on stage with him. Luke Bryan. No, not Luke Bryan. Dang it. It doesn't matter. The last place, his buddy who finished the last place had to come on stage and sing a song at one of his concerts. Like, I thought that was pretty cool, right? That's star power losing type thing. I've seen leagues that do the tattoo thing. Like, it's hard to get everybody to sign up for that. Like I said, I go back to one of my favorites is the Waffle House challenge because it's harmless. Like it's good old harmless fun, and it's fun to watch them record their 24 hours in a Waffle House to get out of purgatory, if you will.
Right. Yeah, that one's a good one. Trying to think of any other very interesting ones that I've seen there.
They have to go out, like you take them out and they buy drinks and have to do karaoke that night.
Yep, I've seen that one. That one's a good one too. I've seen it too, where some of them are, if you're last place. Yeah, I've seen a few different leagues where if you're the last place team, you have to make a donation to a charity matching the league buy-in. Like that can be another fun one too. Yeah, and what's really funny is when you make it the person that wins the league their choice of the charity. So you can get some rather crazy deals there. But that's a good one. I do like the Waffle House challenge, and I like it for a lot of different reasons. One, it's fun and it's harmless, and yeah, certainly just makes things interesting at that point.
Well, yeah, I mean, it doesn't cost you an arm and a leg, right? $60 basically, and it kind of gets you through that. But yeah,
I
I don't know. I like
one of
the idea of them. Our home league group is not that adventurous. Like I've tried to bring that up, and they are very hesitant for a number of different reasons. But I'm not going to get into that. But we've tossed around the idea and been shot down every time.
Yeah. Another interesting one out there is the t-shirts, or you have to wear a t-shirt saying I suck at fantasy,
I
or
suck at fantasy football.
yeah,
Yeah.
those types of things. One of the other ones that I like out there too is the last place team has to host the next draft night. So, right, and this works really well, especially if everybody gets together for a live in-person draft, right? That losing team is the team that hosts the draft night. They're responsible for all the
Food and
pizza,
beverages.
yep, the food, the beverages, all of that. If a lot of teams will get the draft board and have it where they're the stickers on there and all of that. They're responsible for acquiring that and getting it all set up and all of that. So that's another good one, and I like that one a lot too because it brings everybody together again in the league, and has that you getting to hang out with everybody in there while you go through the draft. So I'm a
That's
big
one
fan
thing
of that
that
one too.
technology's taken away from us. Is the group draft. And I do miss that with our home league. And through the years, people have spread out, right? We have people in Texas, we have people in Iowa, we have people in Colorado, we have people in
Louisiana.
Louisiana. Like we are a spread out group now. But man, I do miss being able to just get together with the buddies for a few hours, and you drink some beers, you give each other a hard time. And you have a good draft. So
Right.
there's
There's
definitely parts I miss.
right.
Technology has ruined that part of it. It's made it a lot easier to input rosters and to keep track of everything because I remember doing it longhand a couple years. And
Yes.
you'd be at the house with me afterwards, right? And like, all right, read off this roster that they wrote down so that way I can plug it in. Like I remember doing that, but it is what it is. Trade the good with the bad.
Yeah, absolutely. We did have a question come on Instagram and I missed it. Colson over on Instagram is asking start sit Jaden Reed week 14. I would say start, but depending upon the options.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, it depends on who else you have. I mean, he's going to be ranked as a top 24 wide receiver. Like you're going to be hard pressed to find 24 wide receivers that you'd rather start over the potential upside of him. So it is what it is. You take the good with the bad, right? Like last week, good because the 2 touchdowns in our home league, it wasn't that good, right? Because we are such a volume based league. Even with those 2 touchdowns, he didn't score anything wild and wonderful for me. He held his own. He got to where he needed to be, but it wasn't a boom week like it was in a normal like in a normal PPR. It was like 19.3 points or whatever it was. I think he scored 26 whatever in our home league, which is kind of relatively low.
Right.
Maybe it's 28 points, whatever it was. It's relatively low for a wide receiver that we see a good average being about 40 points.
Right. Yeah, that 30 to 40 point range for sure. In order to even be wide receiver 3 in most cases, you got to put up about 30 points. So, alrighty, awesome. And then Quincy was saying that they actually needed 2 start there. So Need 2 between Devo, MVS, and Jacoby Myers. So Myers is the for sure in. At that point, I may lean Debo. I think he's probably got a little bit safer floor, but if you need the upside, MVS is your guy.
I'm anti-Debo. I'd go MVS.
All right, there you go.
I've run that experiment with Debo this year. I'm so frustrated. Like, screw it. Give me the home run upside.
All right, I like it. Carlos over on YouTube needs some help going forward into the playoffs at QB. They have Purdy, Jordan Love, and Wilson are in the waiver. Who would be the best?
Man.
Wilson has a tough playoff matchup schedule. Purdy's kind of neutral on that standpoint. Jordan Love has a little bit tougher matchup there, but I mean, for me,
like
it kind of
his weapons. His weapons are healthy.
Right. And that's kind of what that comes down to. I think I lean Jordan Love out of those 3.
I think I would also. No Christian McCaffrey, no Brandon Ayuk. I think spells trouble for Brock Purdy.
Absolutely. Mario over on YouTube saying thanks for the options for all those last place punishments there. And Quincy over on YouTube, would you drop Jameis Winston because of his schedule for Bryce Young? I don't know that I ever want to start Bryce Young.
No, I'm keeping JMO.
And I don't know.
I'll ride or die with the excitement of Winston. Like, if that's where I'm at and those are my options, give me someone who is fun to root for. Like crab legs for everybody. Just grip it and rip it.
Right. And with the schedule for Jameis, well, like it actually isn't that tough for the playoff stretch. Like it's probably about on par with what you get out of Bryce Young. That Carolina,
Pittsburgh's tough, right? Pittsburgh's tough, but you get Kansas City. You can put up numbers against Kansas City. Cincinnati, you will expect a solid game, right? Maybe not QB1, but you expect a solid game. And then Miami, like I'm okay with that for Winston.
Right. And then
Young has
Philly, Dallas, Arizona, Tampa.
I mean, it's slightly easier. I'm not gonna lie, but it's
not heads and tails different though.
And Dallas's pass rush and secondary has been playing better. They're healthy now.
Mm-hmm.
They're getting the hang of this Mike Zimmer defense, although I still don't think it's great. But they're getting the hang of it. They're playing better. Dallas, again, they're kind of in screw everybody mode.
Right.
They're trying to ruin seasons and see if they can claw themselves back in by week 17, 18 for a possible wild card spot when no one says they're able to do it. So they're very much a team coming off of back-to-back wins. That is us against the world mentality. So they still have a lot of fight in them until someone takes Dallas and just kind of buries them and says, no, this isn't going to happen. And Cincinnati, Carolina, Tampa Bay are all winnable. Philly in week 17 is probably is hands down their toughest matchup. And then they have Washington again, like at home. So I don't know. Dallas has some fight.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
So I think I'd leave JMO. I like the fun.
Yeah. And even with that, disastrous, 3 touchdowns, 2 pick six on that, still scored incredibly well for fantasy. Like even when Jameis was in the illustrious 30 for 30 club, still scored incredibly well for fantasy that season. So
yeah, he's a top 12 quarterback.
Right.
30 interceptions, and he's still a top 12 quarterback.
Right.
He has moments of greatness. He is not consistent enough to be an elite quarterback. He is honestly, I'd tell you with what we've seen from the quarterback position this year, he's a starting quarterback in this league. You can't tell me that the New York Giants wouldn't be hella exciting if Jameis Winston.
Oh, imagine him and Malik Neighbors.
Yeah.
Yes, please. Yes,
Yeah, like let him be the Giants starting quarterback. Let's see what happens. Hell, put him on the Jets instead of Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, with Garrett Wilson
Even
and Devontae
even
Adams.
if you
Yes,
don't bring Devontae in, with
right.
him and Alan Lazard, you have Brees Hall there. Like you have enough weapons. Put him on there. See, Jameis is fun. He is a starting quarterback in this league. He may not be a top 12, maybe not even a top 15 quarterback, and I'm not going to argue that he is, but he is a top 32 quarterback.
Right.
He just is. We've seen it here the last couple years. You don't think that the Raiders wouldn't take Jameis Winston right now over Aiden O'Connell?
Or Gardner Minshew if healthy.
Yeah. Like,
I mean, could you imagine the Saints with Jameis? With like if they had kept
they
Jameis
had him
there,
though.
right?
They
If
should
they
have kept
kept
him.
him and didn't go the Derek Carr route, like that offense would be electric,
Yeah, they paid Carr too much money.
right?
They
Um,
paid Carr too much money. He should have stayed there and it would have been better. Hell, Carolina. Carolina would not be where they're at right now if they had Jameis Winston as opposed to Andy Dalton. Bryce Young would have never stepped back on the field. Ever.
yeah,
Like, he is. I mean, the Dak injury, but Cooper Rush finds a way to win games for the Cowboys, but the Cowboys would be so fun with Jameis Winston as their
yes,
backup quarterback slinging the rock to CeeDee Lamb right now.
yes,
It'd be so much fun. Like the dude is entertaining to watch. He has grown into a mature football player as far as how he handles himself. He says the right things. His teammates enjoy playing for him. He is a rah guy. Like there's so many things about him I enjoy. I
mhm,
really just do. I enjoy watching him play.
yes.
Same thing with Indy. If Jameis is in Indy, they're in the playoffs.
You're probably not wrong. And Michael Pittman is a thing.
You could argue Jacksonville. If Jameis was starting over Trevor Lawrence for the first part of the season until Lawrence got dinged up, Jacksonville might be relevant. Hey, hold on a second. Like, I'm just throwing quarterbacks out here. He's
Right.
relevant.
Or even if he'd been the backup in Miami when Tua was out for that time, like Miami certainly wouldn't be in the position that they're in.
Oh, heck no.
And that would
Heck no.
that would have been electric to watch.
Yeah, over Skylar Thompson.
Yeah.
Like, hell yeah, I bet they were kicking themselves. Damn, we should have brought JMO in. You're damn right. Because if nothing else, your stars would have been fed.
Right. Absolutely.
People would have continued to turn in and root for that team. So it's all good. But no, all these reasons, Quincy, is why I love Jameis Winston. So I'd stick with him.
Right. And that's one of those two that when I'm part of the thing too, if I'm in between some players and it's even if it's close, I like picking up the guy that I want to root for and that I want to watch, and gives me a reason to tune in and be interested at that point too. So I'd rather go with the guy that I'd rather watch too. So alrighty. Quincy saying that they gave a lead. It's a 12 person league. They have 4-team first place and only 4 teams in the playoffs. I'm in 6. I didn't even know they could do that. It's really unfair.
Only have 4.
Yeah.
4 is tough, and the problem is if you're just running and I don't know how Yahoo's set up, but if you're just running like a standard ESPN league, your standard ESPN league only carries 4 teams. My work league bitches about this every single year that I do this work league, that we only carry 4 teams in the playoff. We really need to change it. We really need to change it, guys. The problem that I always bring up to them in the work league is in a work league, there's so many varying experiences of fantasy football. It's just an office game.
Mm-hmm.
I am not going to go in and change a bunch of rules. I could go in and change whatever. None of them read the rules. None of them know what's going on. I could do a super inflated tight end index and bring 6 teams into the playoffs and then just, kind of roll with it, and people aren't going to understand why. What's the point? baseline. Here's your standard setup. This is what we're running because it's an office league. If you're doing it with a bunch of buddies and you're only bringing 4 in, that's what the off season's for. Ask for a vote. Ask for a vote. Hey, I propose we extend this to 6 teams, to 8 teams, to all 12 teams. I don't care. Whatever you want to propose, Quincy. But I think if it's a league that you do with your friends year after year after year, the off season is the perfect time to bring up opportunities for rule changes. Let the league vote on it. And however you guys need to have it set up, right? Whether it's majority or unanimous, right? Whatever you guys decide. And this is what we're going to go with. I personally like the majority because I think it's hard to find 12 people to agree on anything these days. So I like the majority. Everyone tends to just fall in line with a majority vote, but there's some leagues that I know require a unanimous vote. Otherwise, they will not change it.
Yeah. And, you can set that up too, right? Super majority. If you've got 12 teams in the league, it requires at least 8 to pass a vote on that. Like, there's certainly some options there for it. But
yeah, 4 is tough. 4 is super tough. But again, especially if you're playing with buddies. If it's just a random league that you join, that kind of is what it is. But if it's the same group of people year after year, have a conversation.
Right. And that's one of the things too, that you're right. Every year in our home league, there's probably, I don't know what, at least 5, 6, 7 rules, depending upon the year, that we propose up and we vote on and we discuss and go through. So yeah, it's one of those that nothing has to stay the same year to year. You'd certainly have players out there that want to keep it year to year to year to year and keep it where nothing changes. But again, that's one of those that, you're in control of the league, or at least you should have a say in the league and how it's run and operated. And if you've got a commissioner that doesn't allow for those types of things, well, it may be time to find a different league, or maybe find a different commissioner for that league.
Yeah, absolutely. We started as kind of a standard PPR league. I think the only difference is we changed. I think when we originally had it set up, it's always been 8 teams in the playoffs.
Right.
Like that's just how we built it. Get everybody into the playoffs. Let's see how it shakes out. Right. And then we've added since there, and now it's some super, it's a high volume scoring type league, right? Like it's not just the touchdowns that count. Like you want guys who see a massive target share, who get a lot of carries. Now we added first down bonuses. We added the super flex a couple years ago. We have keepers off of it. We implemented draft round penalties a couple years back. We voted on doing a secondary record off the league median. Last year it got voted down. I'm betting it gets brought up again this offseason. Talking to a couple different guys in the league, I would not be surprised if it gets brought up. We added a 3rd wide receiver spot because we
eliminated kickers.
We eliminated kickers. We used to have head coaches. Like we eliminated kickers. We added IDPs. We've done all sorts of stuff, Quincy. But for the most part, it has been as a vote, especially as we all kind of got older and more, I say more mature, but more mature in our fantasy presence, just in general.
More savvy.
Right? Like, let's do something fun. Let's make it different. Anybody can join a Yahoo or an ESPN league. Let's do something fun.
Right.
So, and it's worked out well. I mean, yeah, there's been turnover over the years. Guys get too busy, asked to bow out. I mean, this, that, and the other. But I mean, the bulk of the league has been together for 17 years. And the group of us, the vast majority of us, right? 8 out of the 12 have known each other since college. And then you find a couple new friends along the way.
Yeah. I think the first year we ran it was the 2006 season. So it might be 18 years. This might be the 18th season.
6 sounds right.
So, yeah. And I want to say it was 2006 was when we started that one.
I would have told you it was 4 or 5. Because we had
you and I didn't know each other in 2004.
Or no, you're right. 6 is correct. Sorry, I'm not thinking correctly. I think 6 is right. It is 6.
I,
So this is
I had to do the math on how
Nope,
that would
you're
have
right.
looked and worked. So
Nope, you're
yeah.
right. So yeah, 6 is right.
So yeah, this is the 18th season of it. So yeah, and like you said, right, it's one of those that it has perpetually, the only thing perpetual about it is that it's changed, and that we're doing things to continuously try and make that better and continuously adapt and change things up to keep it interesting. So
it gives you a reason to watch the games.
Sure.
It just does. Like, it gives you a reason to watch the games more so than regular fantasy football does. Like, in my opinion, too many people draft a team, check the box. Okay, here's set the lineup. Maybe I look at the waiver wire, and then I periodically look on Sunday to see how it's going. Like, our league, I don't feel like our league's set up to do that. Like, you want to see who's touching the ball, because every time the ball is snapped, there is somebody getting points somewhere.
It's very true. So, alrighty. Quincy, I realized we went down a little bit of a rabbit hole there, but hopefully that kind of gave you some thoughts there.
We're passionate about it, okay?
Absolutely. It's a whole, that league spawned this podcast. So,
damn right.
Alrighty. So Terry over on YouTube, full point PPR, pick 2, Bucky, Kenneth Walker, Breece Allen, Braylon Allen, Debo, Keenan Allen, leaning towards Bucky, Debo, or Keenan. Debo's out for me.
Yeah, there's no way I'm playing Debo right now with the volume that he's not seeing. I'm Bucky for sure. The way he's been playing, I'm not worried about the questionable tab that he has right now. So I like Bucky a lot this week. So I think he is a must start for me. And I would rather play Breece over Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Walker has seen 72% of the backfield touches over the last 5 weeks and has not been over 14 PPR fantasy points.
Right.
Like, he's just not doing anything with them. So, not falling into the end zone, not getting the receptions necessarily, like maybe one, but it's not getting you up there. At least give me Breece. I mean, Breece is still finding his way into the end zone.
Yeah. I think I would,
even with the Jets struggle. So Bucky and Breece for me.
That's where I would lean as well. I can see the Keenan Allen side, right? Like, he's been on a heater, been on a hot streak there. I still like I think that both Breece and Bucky give you some very safe floors with some very good upside at that one. Terry saying that Debo should get volume at running back with all of the injuries. And outside of,
you're playing with fire there.
Yeah, I don't
think he sees it.
I don't think he does either. At this point,
if Ayuk was healthy, then maybe. Like, I truly believe that if Ayuk was healthy, then maybe. But Pearsall, outside of one game, has kind of been non-existent. Yes, you have Jennings, but Jennings alone cannot carry a receiving core. Like, they are not set up the same way. You have to have Debo running routes alongside Jennings. Sprinkle in Ricky Pearsall. Obviously, you have George Kittle, but you need that. So maybe he gets a touch or two, but I don't think he sees the volume that he saw. What was that, Derek, in 19 or 20?
I think it was 21, if memory serves right.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to see that at all.
Yeah, it was 21.
So I could be proven dead wrong, Terry, right? I could come to you next week and say, you know what? You saw it and I didn't. I'm not going to claim that my crystal ball is fully clear. I just don't see that happening.
Right. And even when Debo was getting the touches at running back that season, that people gravitate towards and have Debo firmly implanted in their minds that's where that comes to play, is Debo didn't get there because of the rushing work. He got there because of the rushing touchdowns that season, right? He had 59 carries for 365 yards, but 8 rushing touchdowns. Couple that with his 6 receiving touchdowns and the 1,400 receiving yards. That's what put him at wide receiver 2 that season and really kind of had him stand out there. But you take away the 8 touchdowns on that one, and if it's only 3 or 4, which I just don't see them lining up Debo at the bringing him in for goal line work to do that at this point in the season. Like I don't see that one happening. So if he gets a couple of touches and it's midfield, whatever, like that'll get you a little bit, but again, right, if he's not getting those rushing touchdowns, that's where that Debo magic happens and happened that season that everybody kind of has firmly fixated in their mind on what happened there with him and finishing wide receiver number 2 overall in fantasy that season. So anyway, just kind of food for thought there. Any other thoughts on this one?
No, sir.
All righty. Scott over on YouTube saying not good when you have a commissioner who wants it all their way. They've joined 2 other leagues as a result of that type of nonsense. Yeah. If you've got a commissioner that's not willing to, actually just kind of, I'm going to jump on my soapbox here for a minute, but people seem to think that the commissioner is in charge of everything. The commissioner is really at the service of everybody else in the league. And it's a highly underappreciated job when done right. The people that the commissioners that people remember are the ones that have to have it their way. But the truly, really good commissioners, take the input of the league and adapt it and keep fantasy football fun, because that's the point of fantasy football, is to have fun. I don't know. Any other thoughts on that one? I know that you're a commissioner in several leagues as well.
No, cosign. You were there as a facilitator,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like you obviously have to occasionally hear out a grievance or whatever. Most of the time it's stuff that look, man, these are the set of rules that we are playing under. We need to table this to the off season. We will take it to the league as a vote, and it could potentially get corrected going forward. But I mean, outside of now, we play in some weird leagues where the commissioner has to be highly involved, and not in a bad way, but just really hands-on. But a normal fantasy football league, they're there to facilitate. They don't need. They're not a tyrant. They're not a gatekeeper. Like, you're just the guy who clicked start a league. Like,
so, yeah, absolutely. And then Quincy over on YouTube saying, thank y'all. Man, I appreciate y'all. Fam, good night, bros. Appreciate you tuning in.
Good night, man. Good luck.
And then Mario over on YouTube saying, Debo seems like he's lost a step, not as fast as he was last season. He even looks a little bit, I think that means to say thicker, but it says ticker in there.
I don't know that I fully subscribe to that. Now, he might look a little bit bigger, but Debo's always been kind of a thicker wide receiver. Like, he's never been a string bean guy. But there's definitely been some plays where Debo breaks loose and pulls away, like just straight pulls away from the secondary. Debo's he's not, his 10-yard split's not great. His 40 and 60-yard dash is electric. His 10-yard split's not great. It just takes him a half a step longer to get up to speed than, DK Metcalf, obviously Tyreek Hill,
that acceleration.
So I don't know. And again, when Ayuk plays like trash and you can funnel all your coverage into Debo, it's going to make him look different. It just is. Like, it's why you've kind of seen up to this year the pivot between Ayuk and Debo on which one's the fantasy darling and which one's the fantasy bum, is because when they're both on the field, it does change season to season where teams are gearing their coverage. With Ayuk sitting out of camp and having a really bad start, and then obviously the injury, it's allowed teams to just funnel everything over to Debo. I think that's part of the reason you've seen George Kittle be tight end number 3 or whatever he is at the moment, is because teams are worried about Debo. That's where their concern was. So coverage has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, certainly does. And I think that's going to take us down to the end of it. I don't see any other questions, comments, concerns coming in here. Let's go ahead and call it a night. And while we do that, why don't any final thoughts out there for the listeners and viewers?
Keep plowing. You got 1 week left before the playoffs, so hammer down, hit the waiver wire. Do whatever you need to do, position yourself for the playoffs. But hopefully we see you all back next week on Tuesday saying, hey, I am 3 weeks away from a fantasy championship. So good luck to you all, unless I'm playing you, and then I hope I get one over on you. And outside of that, at Good Old Boys FF, YouTube, hit like, subscribe. We appreciate the interaction. We appreciate you guys tuning in and listening to our rabbit holes and jaw jacking back and forth with us a little bit. But, thank you. Y'all have a good night.
Absolutely. Kevin mentioned it. You can find us on all the socials, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube at Good Old Boys FF. I don't know if I mentioned Instagram, but Instagram in there too. But all the socials, all the places there. Again, appreciate everybody tuning in, chiming in. But that's going to do it for us tonight. We'll be back on Friday night, 11 p.m. Eastern, to kind of get ready for the slate of games and help get those things set. About 3-4 weeks away at this point from cash and trophies. So let's make it happen there. But that's going to do it for us tonight. He's Kevin. I'm Derek. Have a good one. Be safe. Toodaloos.